Sorry, everybody. I was about to rock out to that synthwave, but welcome back. We're back. Bowl week 2-ish. Kind of a slow week with that. National Signing Day was yesterday. We'll get into that. Hope everybody's doing well and a Merry Christmas coming up. And of course, I have to introduce my lovely co-host KB Kirk Brown out in Phoenix. How we doing?
Honestly, we're doing great today. It's beautiful down here. It's about 72. We actually got a rain yesterday.
We love it.
Don't get that very often down here, but enjoying the nice weather and enjoying another slow week, but still interesting week of college football with all the other things that kind of go on.
Yeah, another sporting news quick. State with a basketball win. Michigan had a close loss earlier this week. The Pistons suck. And National Signing Day was yesterday, like I said. So KB and I are gonna go over kind of our classes here, kind of discuss everything, go over a couple bowl games this week that we picked. There's one right now as well. We'll talk about that, and maybe we'll talk about some Michigan stuff, but nothing really new with the Michigan stuff. But let's just jump in right away to our National Signing Day. High school kids committing. I did see one guy just to bring it up, KB. I don't know if you saw it, but high school kids are high school kids. 18-year-old kid committed to Colorado on. I might have been on
2 weeks ago.
Fox or something. Was he with
Yeah,
Colin Coward?
on First Take. First Take.
Yeah, and he was hyping
Or,
them. No, I thought it was with Colin Coward and
or
whatever.
yeah, yeah, the Fox show.
Yeah, it was a Fox show. He said he was signing in Colorado, was hyping him up, had a speech, and then 2 weeks later he gets flipped to Maryland, of all places, and he was a top O-line recruit. I'm assuming Maryland threw a bag at him, especially with NIL these days. That's not regulated whatsoever. So, there is some crazy stories about National Signing Day. I've seen one where a kid faked everything, and he wasn't even an actual football player, and he signed with the team. There's a bunch of crazy stories. It never lets us down every year. So it is, it's high school kids, 18-year-old kids, and I remember when I was 18, I picked a shitty major, and here we are today, and it's been a journey. But any thoughts on anything like that, KB, before we jump into our classes for 2024?
Yeah, Jeremiah Smith, who's the number one overall recruit that committed to Ohio State, said, "Yeah, Miami and the Florida schools are throwing bags of money at me, but I'm staying and sticking with Ohio State."
Hmm.
Like, it is the wild, wild west in recruiting. You're not supposed to say, "Hey, if you sign here, we'll give you this. Sign on the dotted line, and you receive all this NIL." It's not how it's supposed to work.
Who
But
was
we're in that
who was the kid where his NIL like fell through? I think that might have been. I know Jeremy.
Jaden Rashada, the kid from that's at
Oh,
ASU.
okay. I know. I
He
think
was
something
he
happened
was
with
at
Jeremy Bernard too. That's why
yeah
he
he was
originally
at
went to state.
yeah he went to Florida, like goes to enroll there, and supposedly they were giving him like 13 million total with like $4 million a
Holy
year and
fuck! How much?
$1 million, 13 million for 4 years.
Holy god!
And so like he was supposed to get a million on signing, and
We're throwing away. We're throwing that much money at these kids.
allegedly, this is all allegedly, right?
Holy shit! 13 million?
Because these are all private NIL collectives with relationships with the schools, but technically they're third
They don't
parties.
even do anything
But
with NIL. Like they just like give them money. They don't do any commercials. They
yeah,
don't do any like. I mean, I know some kids go sign stuff. They make deals. I know I saw Windman did a deal with a dealership, like a car dealership. But like half these kids are not doing anything in their name, image and likeness. It's just like,
yeah,
hey, go play and we'll pay you.
yeah. It's interesting because the way that it's kind of balanced right now is the top recruits are just picking a number basically, and they're hiring agents, and there's no restriction on who can be hired as an agent. It can be your uncle, it could be your friend, it could be your cousin, it could be an actual certified agent. And so a lot of these deals are getting signed, and these promises, they can't be put on paper. Some of them can't, and so they're all verbal agreements, and then the kid gets to the school and the verbal agreement falls through too. So it's kind of the wild, wild west. There's no oversight. When the transfer portal hit, that was kind of like, well, that was a long time coming, and then NIL hit, and just both of them coming together and kind of influencing football has been crazy, and there's been no oversight or control on all of it.
Nope.
So I think it's good for the kids. I'm happy they all are getting paid, but I just wish there'd be some, hey, these
Regulation.
are effectively the boundaries,
Yeah.
and it's not just the regulation; it's like the enforcement. Like there's policies where it's like you can't offer money to kids like until they're enrolled at your school. Like you
But
can't
it's
talk
not
to
through the
third party
school. It's
NIL
through.
collectives.
Oh, you
Yeah,
can't
but you
even.
can't.
Oh, I know the
No, because
coach can't even.
you have to be.
Technically, the coach can't be part of it either. But yeah, I do have something else to bring up once you're done with your point.
Yeah, and so it's just like I just want some oversight and kind of some ideas on it, and kind of
Agree.
seeing how all of it works. I mean, all this information should be public. Vast majorities of these universities are public. We know where their funding's going. We know what the salaries are, but we have an undisclosed amount for how much the third party through the school is paying these players. And so that's kind of one of those things. But overall, I'm happy players are getting paid, but it does create a lot more wishy-washy with like Dylan Raiola, for example, like
His
flipping
dad
like
went
three
there, but
different
I don't know if
schools
that
in his
matters or not.
three different commitments.
Yeah.
A few days before the signing period, and
Yeah.
so it's crazy but fun. But what were you gonna say, Dave?
Yeah, I do another thought. Think about transfer portal, think about National Signing Day, and think about playoffs next year, dude. Playoffs are right now next year. And imagine how busy the coach. Like, imagine Jonathan Smith right now. I mean, obviously we're not in the playoff. It wouldn't happen in this situation. But imagine your team. Michigan is, I don't know, maybe they're 10, so they're playing in the first round. They got to sign high school kids. Then they got to worry about the portal, and they're playing in a game. I don't know if they want to move this date for National Signing Day, maybe to August, kind of like basketball, so it's right before the season. Then still do February, but I just don't think this schedule really would work with the playoff starting next year. This week, you're gonna have transfer portal open. You're gonna have National Signing Day early. Most kids sign now in November, February. Some kids sign. One kid for state we'll talk about. But I just want to get your thoughts on that, KB. I think coaches right now are already really busy, and obviously there's a little bit of break for a lot of teams during this bowl time. But I think it might be even more chaotic with the playoffs. As much as I want the playoff, I just think with everything going on, there's a lot of moving pieces.
No, absolutely. I think they're gonna have to move early signing day
To where?
either up or back.
Would you just
I
have it
don't
in
know.
February then? Would you just go back to one day?
But the only problem is that you want to have early enrollees. So like Michigan right now, there's freshmen like Jacob Oden, who's a guy from Michigan. He's practicing with the team right now because he's technically enrolled in the school. He's on the team, so he's practicing. So you can have people who were in high school 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that are now on your team practicing with you. If they graduate early, get all that done. So that's why you have early signing period is for all these young players that don't finish the senior season. They skip, the back end. And they get enrolled to school early so they can go through everything. They can go through winter conditioning, winter lifting, and then they're already there for spring ball. So I think it is a tricky business. I think that we're going to have to see some time changes. Like I said, it might be earlier. I don't know if you start the week of college football earlier,
They are.
make week 0 the official week,
They are. They are
and
next
and
year.
then
They
and
already.
then add. Oh, okay,
It's already happening. Next year is week 0 is officially week 1, I believe.
gotcha. Okay, well then, maybe eliminate the conference championship games or something, and make that week the dead period for signing. Just because there's so much going on, like you said, they're going to be preparing for a game and worrying about recruits. Like the teams who aren't making the playoffs are going to have a huge advantage because what the hell do I give a shit about a bowl game?
Yep.
I'm going to go, you know, throw a bag at this kid who hasn't been talked to in 2 weeks by these schools. And then on top of all that, you also have the transfer portal going on where you look at a team like Ole Miss, who's technically preparing for a bowl game, but all of their coaches are in conversations with, and you look at kind of the top teams like Washington, Texas, Alabama, Michigan, you're not accepting any transfers in because no one's leaving your team either.
Yep.
So it's going to be weird to see how they kind of flex this, if maybe they push back the portal date or I don't know. It's kind of a mess right now,
Someone
honestly.
has to change. I thought I'd bring it up because next year we have the playoff, and obviously some teams have a bye, and obviously teams are in a bowl game too. But like, it's just another wrinkle to add to everything. As much as we all want the playoff, obviously D2, D3, they're all recruiting too. It's a little bit different, obviously in that realm. But let's just segue into National Signing Day with all this talk, KB. That's a good conversation. I'm glad we brought it up. I think I'll just jump into state right away. If you include transfer in the high school ranking, we're 38 overall. I think in a 3-week time span, Jonathan Smith has done a wonderful job. Him and the guys, they had 2 official weekends for visits, and these guys are jumping onto any kid in Michigan and Ohio. All these coaches are out driving. I know one coach, the DB coach, is in Rhode Island. We got a kid up from there, and we got 2 kids from Hawaii. So I mean, these guys are busting their ass. And, they're getting guys. We flipped a couple of mid-major guys. That's what you have to do in your first year when you get like 3 weeks to recruit. So kudos to the team. I'm just gonna list some names, probably most of them, because we only signed like 18 kids. The top recruit for state is Nick Marsh out of River Rouge, 4-star receiver. He's been with state the whole time during this whole Tucker thing. So kudos to him, and his mom, Mama Tron is his mom. She's kind of popular in the MSU Twitter sphere. So shout out to him. And I think keeping the wide receiver coach, Courtney Hawkins, was huge for him staying. And I'll just list some other kids and say where they're from. Rustin Young, tackle, Hawaii. I don't know how he got, I just love seeing these Hawaii guys. Kikiai Burnett, another Hawaii kid. He's an edge rusher. Then we have these two twins, Lewandowski, Mercer, and his brother's way lower listed. Mercer and Charlton. I heard they're athletic linemen. Their parents are like in the circus or something. Hmm?
Offensive or defensive?
Offensive. They're both O linemen. But like their families like in the circus or something, so they can do like cartwheels and are super athletic. But for bigger kids, one is listed for 6'7", 300, which is probably a little bit high, and the other one's 6'5", 280. They're twins, so that's kind of a cool thing. Brady Pretzlaff, he's from Gaylord, Michigan. He was I think Defensive Player of the Year. We flipped him from Minnesota. Probably helps that we got Joe Rossi. Then I'll list more names. Justin Denson, cornerback out of Pennsylvania. Alicio Melevajovic, I don't know that's some Eastern European name. Quarterback out of Illinois, we just got him this week. Wyatt Hook, tight end out of California. Peyton Stewart, probably an original recruit from Oregon State. Tackle from Washington. Austin Clay, receiver from Ohio. Rakeem Johnson, very, very athletic O-lineman from Idaho. Jalen Thompson, cornerback, Tennessee. Keyshawn Williams, athlete, I don't know what his positions are, Tennessee. Rylan Jesse, he's an interesting one. He's a late commit. I was listening to some podcasts. He was committed to Utah State. He literally just visited state this last weekend. Talked to, I think it was the guy at 24/7 for Michigan State, said he was staying with Utah State. And then Jonathan Smith in the last minute, got him to commit and flip to state.
Ag.
Yeah, probably. Okay. It's possible. And then he got him to flip to state, so I think that's a win. We need the quarterback depth. Andrew Brinson, the fourth, athlete out of Florida. Makai Frazier, running back out of Texas. He looks good. Brandon Tullis, another running back out of Texas. And there's one hard commit that is really interesting. Jaden Walker out of Portage Northern. He's a linebacker. He's very good. The only reason why he didn't commit is Lincoln Riley came over to Portage Northern High School and had a little visit. So USC is looking at him hard too. So he's going to probably sign in February either with us or USC. Obviously, if he's getting recruited by USC, he's got to be pretty dang good. So hopefully he stays close to home. And then our 5 transfers. Quindarius Dunnigan, we got him yesterday as well from Middle Tennessee State, second team Conference USA. Sounds like he's a leader. Sounds like he's vocal, so that's a good pickup. TJ Sheffield from Purdue, little slot receiver. Jack Velling, tight end, Oregon State. Jordan Turner, local kid from Farmington from Wisconsin, linebacker, transferred over. And then obviously the big name, Aiden Childs, QB1 from Oregon State. So all things considered, KB, I think that's a good job by these coaches in 3 weeks. We're kind of around the 50 range, 40 range, which is, in a 3-week span with the portal and these high school kids that you got to, flip in mid-majors. I think a couple guys were from MAC schools and the Utah State kid. I think that's a tremendous job, and hopefully we land maybe an older quarterback that kind of understands his role of being a backup. I think that would be also huge. Being Childs is probably the starter, then we got these 2 freshman kids from Illinois and California. That's a lot of information, but I thought you should know, and I think that's all good shit. I think Nick Marsh is going to be starting next year. He's our top recruit, and he'll probably be a slot receiver. But we also have Montorie Foster staying, and Jaron Glover, who visited Georgia, is staying, both receivers.
Quick question for you. You said, what did you say, like, just your recruit ranking was?
Composite ranking on Spartan Tailgate, so 24/7, I see 47.
Okay.
And transfer rank is 29, overall 38.
Okay, that's not bad at all.
I heard 54. I heard 54 yesterday, so I don't know. Every site's a little bit different. Rivals might weigh us a certain way compared to 24/7.
Yeah, and this isn't a good indication. I mean, he's kind of thrown in a shitstorm of a situation, and any good guys, keeping Marsh is huge. I've read a lot of good things about him. He's kind of like the cornerstone of that class that you guys got, and then obviously some of the transfers will help. It'll be important to add depth still through the portal. I mean, just getting guys on campus that are at least somewhat capable athletes. So Michigan recruiting, their composite was 15th. Their transfer rank was 68th, but I anticipate that to really change. I know the transfer portal is going to open back up around spring ball, which if they do any damage, that's when we're going to kind of see it. Just because they're still competing for championships and their coaches have, not going to say way more important things to worry about, but important in the sense that like they're not going to be spending a whole ton of time tracking down recruits during this time period.
Absolutely.
They did get a guy from Maryland that they played against, so I'm not saying that they're not worrying about it at all, but just you can't look at the resources they're really going after there. Um, sorry, I had to take a had a call.
No worries.
Had to ignore that. But anyway, Michigan's class is 15th. I don't think we're ever going to see Michigan really be in the top tier classes. You look at Harbaugh's 2017 class, Harbaugh's 2016 class. After his first few years, and he had top 10 classes back-to-back years, and those didn't result in wins, really. Seems like he kind of went away from that approach in a sense of getting high recruit guys and really focused on getting guys that more fit the scheme of Michigan. He's basically hung around like the 10 to 15 to 18 range. Some of his worst classes, I think the 2019 class was 22nd overall, and that was the one with Hutch and a whole slew of really, really good players. That ended up being super, super impactful by the end of the program in 2021. But so I'm not super, super concerned with who they got. I think they got a lot of good players, but they obviously didn't get the 5 stars. You want 5 stars, but Michigan doesn't deal in handing out bags.
Yeah.
They will pay people who are performing well. Like I know Will Johnson, I know Corum, I know JJ are all treated really well in the NIL in terms of what they're getting. But they're not going to be like, hey, we'll give you $10,000 to visit. We'll give you another 800,000 to once you sign. That's not really the game they play.
Yeah.
Which that's what the top recruits deserve. That's what they're getting. And so Michigan's not really going to be able to get a lot of those guys. Will Johnson's obviously an outlier. He's from Michigan, from the area, huge Michigan guy. So that's kind of the one outlier. But I like their class. I'm going to list the top handful. They got Jordan Marshall, who's the Ohio State Player of the Year. Nabbed him out of Cincinnati. Ohio went with a guy out of Oklahoma or Texas, a higher ranked recruit. He's the number 6 in his position. I think they got like the 3rd or 2nd. They got Jaden Davis, who and he's a 4-star. This is another 4-star, Jaden Davis. He's out of North Carolina. He was a 5-star when Michigan started recruiting him. He had a very inconsistent Elite 11, 7-on-7 drills, wasn't very accurate, wasn't very on time. Maybe didn't know the playbook, but had a really great senior season. But when you don't perform at those camps, you aren't going to shoot up draft boards, and some of the guys passed him. He's kind of limited athletically. He's only 6 foot, just kind of above more Drew Brees type build. So he really doesn't have the next level skills and height that you would expect for like a 5-star recruit. Andrew Sprague is a 6'8" offensive tackle from Kansas City, Missouri. Don't know a lot about him, but whenever you can get a 6'8", 295 freshman to walk on campus, that's not a problem, especially with the strength and conditioning room. Brady Prescorn, he's from Rochester, Michigan. He went to Adams. Another 4-star
Fighting
guy,
Scots.
tight end.
The Fighting Scots. Jenna
Yeah,
Browns.
he's a 6'6" tight end, so
He's a big boy.
always love having big guys. He's a white guy, yeah. Then they got Blake Frazier, a guy out of Texas, another tackle. They got a guy out of Maryland, Lugard Idakpai. Bishop McNamara. This was a late addition. He's 6'6", 230. One of those more raw guys that really needs some time and strength and development room. But Michigan likes freaky athletic guys. He's a guy who committed really late. But there was no drama. There was no big flips that Michigan lost. There was no big flips they got. So not a huge deal. I'm going to name off 3 more guys here. Jacob Oden. He's that athlete. He'll probably play linebacker, or I could see him shading into running back. But he's from Harper Woods, Michigan, so he's already on the team, already in the campus. I think he might be practicing at linebacker, but haven't read a whole lot on him. Jaden Smith, another North Carolina guy. He's an athlete. He, I believe, is kind of alongside. He knows Jaden Davis, so there's kind of that North Carolina connection. They don't play on the same team, but both from there. He's a 6'3" athlete. Marion Stewart. wide receiver out of Kenwood Academy, Chicago. He's a huge addition, 5'10 guy, really explosive athlete, kind of a type of athlete that Michigan doesn't see a whole heck of a lot. And then the last guy I do want to mention is there's a ton of guys, but is Micah Kapana. He's out of Bishop Gorman. Team won the national championship this year, right? Voted, and he was like a low 3-star. He's jumped all the way up to 506 nationally. He didn't get any chances before. He was kind of the backup, but I really like the way he plays. I've heard a lot of good news about him, so excited to kind of see what they have.
What
But
position?
Michigan had a
What position was
he's
he?
a running back.
Running back. Okay.
So Jordan Marshall's the running back out of Ohio, huge get, and then you have that guy as well. So Michigan has recruited the running back position really well under Mike Hart. Any guy that they kind of give the ball to, any guy that they recruit, they do a fantastic job. And then the last guy also is David Palele or Pale. He's a 6'3", 305 guy that they late flipped from USC over to Michigan. So that was the only guy that really kind of flipped over to them late. But overall, pretty good class. Nothing that kind of knock your socks off about. The bigger class for them is next year to see if they can get Bryce Underwood, see if he can stay home possibly.
Is that the kid from Belleville?
Yeah, the 5-star number.
Bryce, I
recruit.
don't play in
So,
the second half. Underwood.
yeah, so that's going to be something to kind of keep an eye on. It's good. I mean, I don't know. Once you get them in the development program, and if they don't leave, hopefully they're the right place. I know one transfer that they have their eyes on is Domani Jackson. He's a USC guy, cornerback. Obviously, the defensive situation with USC is awful. They haven't developed guys. They've had a ton of high-ranking recruits on that side of the ball. They haven't developed them. He was allegedly going to go with Will Johnson wherever Will went because he's one of his close friends, and he picked USC. And Will's like, "No, I'm staying here. Like, why would you go play defense in USC? Doesn't really make sense." And
Cali, baby.
it's one of those. It's one of those guys that we might see be a contributor next year. He struggled at USC, but everyone did on that defense, so that's going to be one of the interesting things to see. And then the one guy they got in the transfer portal is Jason Barham. He's out of Maryland. He's 6'4", 233. Just an absolute unit at a linebacker position. He's the guy who actually picked off JJ earlier this year in that game. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that all develops. This most likely means that Junior Colson, who's a junior this year, is likely to leave for the draft. And then Michael Barrett's out of eligibility, so this would put him and Ernest Hausman, who's also a transfer from Nebraska. So I don't know. I'm just happy with this class. I'm less excited about recruiting nowadays, mostly because when Michigan had really high recruiting classes, it didn't matter.
It did not matter.
It's about developing and
Yeah.
getting guys into the right position and coaching them up and then filling any holes through the transfer portal, which Michigan has shown over the course of the last 3 years they've been more than capable of doing. So
I have a couple
any
thoughts.
questions?
Yeah, two
Yeah.
questions and a thought. I think my thought is Michigan does a good job at getting guys ready for the NFL. I think that's pretty evident in drafts, especially lately. Obviously with Brady Hoke and then the transition, it was kind of very hit or miss in my opinion, especially when you got I saw you guys play state in like great recruiting classes, but this wasn't on the field, so that's why they made the change. And my two questions are: does JJ stay and does Harbaugh stay? Because we talked a lot about Harbaugh. Early in the year, I thought Harbaugh was gone, and there's been rumors that they're working on an extension, but nothing's been really out there. I still think he might be going to the NFL. I know probably in the contract, if he does extend with Michigan, that he will probably be in the contract that he can't sign with an NFL team or look like he interviewed last year with the Vikings. I think JJ goes to the NFL, but maybe he doesn't because next year's class is maybe a little bit weaker. Just a couple things to think about, obviously, during recruiting. I'm actually looking at our old class from last year, and there's some guys that are not in the portal that are kind of contributing towards the end of the year, so that's something that I feel good about. Jordan Hall, Jalen Thompson, guys that are contributing that are still on the team. So just something else to think about, too. Maybe look at last year's class, especially for state. Obviously, we're in a lot different situation. By Job is another name to bring up. These guys are still on the team. And I think the coaching coming in is really good. So I just said it's quick side tangent, but back to my questions: does JJ and Harbaugh stay? What are your thoughts?
So I saw a really good tweet today. I don't remember who sent it, but it was a Michigan account, and it said, "I think that the likelihood of both guys staying is incumbent upon if they win the national / get to the national championship."
Makes sense.
JJ, I've seen a lot of people be like, "Oh, JJ, he's lost 2 games now in the college football playoff," and it's like, well, you guys aren't very good college football fans, and I don't expect people to watch, the Georgia blowout, but he came in and somewhat gave them some life and sort of moved the ball a little bit better. But that game was killed at the start. Last year, obviously, didn't play great. I think he wants to redeem himself. I think that the news of this class being so highly touted is a little bit overblown. Ewers is returning. Uh, some of these other guys are returning. Gabriel's returning. You're really competing with,
Drake May and
Drake May and
Caleb
Williams
Williams.
are 1, 2.
Who else we got?
You have Jaden Daniels, who's probably 3, and then JJ, depending on how he plays the last few weeks.
He
If
hasn't.
he
Let's be honest.
shows
He
out
hasn't thrown
against
the ball that much the last few weeks. Obviously, he was like I think you said he tweaked his ankle or something. So that could
yeah,
probably play into that one.
yeah, it's. Let me rewind, finish this point, and then we can talk about that. So he's basically like, I think, slotted 4 or 5 as a quarterback, and 4 or 5 QBs could go in the first round. And honestly, you'd rather not go early. I know it sounds dumb, but like, for your health and for your safety, you want to go to a team that you can sit for a year behind someone that drafts you at 23, that has good players on the team but just need a push, and that you can develop. That's what Patrick Mahomes did.
Lamar.
Right? It's not fun. Yeah, Lamar, it's not fun going out there and getting your neck snapped like we've seen Bryce Young do
Yeah.
week after week after week. That's only healthy from the grace of God. Harbaugh, I listened to the MGO Blue Roundtable blog or podcast today with the Michigan Insider, and there's serious interest from the Raiders because he has a connection with the Davis family, and there's serious interest from the Chargers because he's from California, lived out there for a long time, was with the 49ers. He has a place in San Diego, so there's a whole lot of influence there.
I was
Like
thinking
I
the
said,
Bears. So those are two
No,
teams I wasn't
he's
thinking of.
absolutely not going to the Bears.
Okay.
He hates their GM. Their GM and him hate each other. They
Oh,
were
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they are not good friends. I'd be very surprised. I know he has a connection with the Bears. He played with them, but I'd just be very, very surprised if that happened. So yeah, that all is kind of an influence. And then back to your question about JJ, I think that there was a few concerns. Penn State game, I think he got rocked, and going with a silent count, the right tackle couldn't block anyone. And
True.
There's concern like if they get around that right tackle and kill him or knock the ball loose or they get blindside on them, then that's how they can impact and win this game because their offense is booty. The Maryland game, I think, was just not a good game. And you can have those once in a while. He missed some easy throws that he doesn't miss. He looked out of sync all game. He threw a really bad pick after almost throwing a pick the play before. And Ohio State, he played fine. They didn't ask him to do a lot. He completed his last 12 pass attempts. He was 12 of 12 after starting. I think he finished 16 of 20, so he was 2 of 4 to start, or 2 of 6 to start and finished 12 of 12. I mean, if that's not playing well just because they don't ask him to throw the ball downfield, like that's more a product of the offense and play calling, which we can talk about more so than JJ not completing passes and looking bad. And the same thing with Iowa. I mean, he was like 20 something of 30. I mean, if that's bad just because he doesn't have 250 yards, well, that's bad because of play calling, not because he isn't throwing the ball to open receivers. And that's more of a product of the offense. JJ for a long time was questioned on his ability to just dink and dunk, and he always wants to go long and push the ball vertically. And the last 4 weeks, he hasn't done that as a product of both the offense and his injury, I think. And now everyone's, slaying him about it. He had no problem doing that against Purdue. I know it's lower competition, and I think there's a completely different strategy. It'll be interesting to see what they do, but I also know that calling one play action pass against an Iowa team that is running linebackers down and adding guys to help in the run game is not something that an offense that's trying to do anything is actually calling. It was a whole lot drop back and pass, which doesn't make much sense against a defense like that. So not to go too long on a tangent, but I think that's going to be impactful how he plays against Alabama. There's going to be a lot of people in the stands. There's going to be a lot of draft prospects, and that's 2 of the top cornerbacks. I think the receivers look at it as a huge challenge. No one thinks they can get open. I think Roman Wilson could have a huge game, but it's more going to have to be schemed. It's more going to have to be, let's not just run 2 crossing routes. It's going to have to be like, let's focus on getting guys the ball. And does that happen? I don't know. I rewatched the TCU game today from front to back, and the play calling was dreadful, especially on second and short situations. So who knows what ends up happening in that game? But
Yeah,
it is going to influence a ton.
yeah, all good thoughts. Obviously, my mind's already in the next season. Obviously, you have a lot to play for, but I'm really interested. Obviously, this is just me because I don't have a team playing, but I'm really interested in Michigan next year with the schedule and everything going on with the coaching and maybe a different quarterback. So, obviously, there's still a lot to play for you guys. Don't get me wrong, KB, but I'm really interested in next year for Michigan with a really hard schedule and maybe a coaching change.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I think their defense is going to be even better next year. As silly as that sounds, is the number one scoring defense in the country. I think top to bottom they'll be better. It'll be just what happens with Harbaugh. I mean, maybe he leaves and everyone leaves in the spring because they're like, fuck that. But also they could stay if Sharon Moore stays. I don't know. There's a whole lot, and I'm honestly just trying to think about getting to January 1st and Michigan coming out on top in one singular bowl game. So
Absolutely, yeah. They haven't won a bowl game in. Have they won a New Year's Six bowl ever?
2015
I don't think they've won.
ever. Yeah.
Well, the new
What
New
do you mean
Year's
ever?
Six, like since it's been a thing.
2013?
It wasn't the New Year's Six until the playoff.
I don't know. I'd have to
They
look.
haven't won a bowl game since 2013.
No, they haven't won a New Year's Six bowl game since then. The last bowl game they won is 2015, though.
What game was that?
The Citrus Bowl against Florida, I think.
I think that's right. Our last was Peach Bowl 2 years ago. Okay, but
Or
let's
maybe
that's
it's the Outback Bowl. But
Outback Bowl rip. But that's a lot of talk about signing in teams. KB had a lot to say about Harbaugh and JJ, which I respect. I get it. But I'm really interested in next year for Michigan. Obviously, there's still a lot to play for, like I said already. But harder schedule. If their coach and their QB's gone, obviously Michigan gets talent, but it could be interesting. And I'm looking forward to next year already, obviously, because last year was a shit show for us, so my mind's somewhere else. But let's jump into the couple games that we had to watch this week so far, KB. Really kind of a slower week. No games on yesterday, one game on Monday and Tuesday, and one tonight. So we'll go back to the famous Toastery Bowl. I don't know if we talked about this or not earlier, but we had Western Kentucky and ODU. If we talked about it before, I want to bring it up again because we actually both picked Western Kentucky. KB thought he picked ODU, Old Dominion, which is incorrect. I had thought I was up by one to this game. This game was crazy. Western Kentucky was down 28-0 and comes back and wins 38-35. They put in their quarterback that is in the portal, and he was just slinging it around. ODU couldn't play defense, and they shut him out in the second half. Crazy game, wild game. Shout out Hilltoppers. Great logo, and just a fun game. Good for Veldkamp, who was a quarterback that's in the portal. Maybe he goes somewhere now, and after they saw that tape, or maybe he stays. But the other quarterback was pissing it down his leg, and he wasn't looking too great. I forgot who it was. It's somebody a big name in football. Helton. His dad, I think, used to coach at USC. His uncle is the coach at Western Kentucky, and he wasn't looking good, so they took him out and put in Veldkamp. He threw 52 times for 380, 40 completions for 383 and 5 touchdowns. So they're slinging the ball around, and Western Kentucky with a great comeback win in the famous Toastery Bowl. KB, we both got this one right.
yeah, I lucked into this one. I thought I had ODU. I might even said ODU and switched it accidentally. But Western Kentucky wins this game, 28-point comeback. Just absolutely wild game. You thought that ODU was going to run away with it. And like you said, they just replaced their quarterback. And it was like, hey, when you actually have a good quarterback, you can win the games. And that's what happened. To jump into the next one, it's the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. This one's UTSA versus Marshall. We had a hell of a quarterback matchup.
We did.
Josh McCown's son and Chad Pennington's son were going at it. UTSA got the best of Marshall, even though Marshall, I think, were up at the start of this
Yeah,
game.
they started out way good, but UTSA had 21 in the
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, 14-0, and then UTSA was up 21-17 at the half, and they did not look back and ended up winning 35-17. Frank Harris, I think, wanted to play in this game, but was injured, shoulder injury, couldn't really throw, and so
Yep.
he didn't. He's been in college football for 7 years, so really sad to kind of see him.
10,000 10,000 passing yards.
Yeah. Sometimes you win by gashes, and sometimes you slash someone 1,000 times. That's how
Yeah.
you kind of get there. He played a ton of college football games, similar to Bo Nix. Fun fact: Bo Nix broke the record for the most career starts this year
That's
at
crazy.
Oregon. and Dylan Gabriel has an opportunity next year
to break it.
if he plays, I think, in 5 or 6 games to break Bo Nix's record for most
In his
starts
third
in
school.
a career.
It's
But
nuts.
this was a fun game. I didn't watch a whole ton of it. I kind of was just jumping on back and forth while I was gaming. But
Did you see
uh,
at
we
the
both
end
took no.
they had like a big coffee mug. It looked like like a white cup with a red top on it, and it was like cold brew coffee. And they dumped it on the coach. The coach is like 4 or 5 yards in the field, and there's still a play going on. So that's just bowl season in a nutshell. I absolutely love it. If you want to look up the clip, do it. It's just funny. And like KB said, this was Cole Pennington, Chad Pennington's kid, Marshall legend, played with Randy Moss, I believe, unless I'm wrong. And then Josh McCown's kid, Owen McCown. Josh McCown probably played for 20 teams in the NFL. Owen's a lefty. He looks like he's 10. Cole Pennington looks like he's about 15. So these kids are like young freshmen, sophomores. Just a cool matchup, and UTSA got the nice win. Any other thoughts on this one, KB? We both picked them. We're actually both 7-2. I thought I was up by 1, like I said earlier, because KB said ODU. But this is a fun game, fun matchup.
Yeah, and we can kind of talk about the next game. We're not going to preview, but this one's going on right now, and Dave will be up 1.
I will be.
South Florida is jackhammering Syracuse 31-0 right now.
Yeah.
It is a slaughter, turnovers galore. So Dave is going to be up, but there's a lot of good games on come Saturday. We'll probably review all the games on Tuesday night following Christmas. So this will probably be our last time talking to you guys, but James Madison Air Force for the Lockheed Martin Air Forces Bowl. Northwestern versus Utah. San Jose Coastal on Tuesday. That'll be on early, so we'll be able to kind of talk about it. Bowling Green, Minnesota, so a Big Ten matchup. And then while we'll be talking, UNLV Kansas will be going on. And then obviously we get into the fun bowl games later on that week before New Year's. And then we'll have our preview and prediction. Thursday, I mean, honestly, Dave, I'm kind of talking about this just on the air, but our Thursday prediction, I really don't even really want to talk about any of the New Year's Six bowl games. So maybe we just do that on Tuesday. We review some and then preview all of them, because I think the playoff games deserve their own episode and deserve their own attention.
We'll figure it out. We could always talk on New Year. We'll figure it out. We'll have to make a schedule. But yeah, there's a lot of good games coming up. This week is a little bit slower, like KB said. We have a game tomorrow as well. Georgia Tech, USCF. Could be a fun one. And then a handful of games. I'm actually looking forward to maybe watching Troy a little bit on Saturday. I think they're kind of an under the radar team. They're double-digit wins, really good running back, so that's a game that I want to watch. And like KB said, the Lockheed Martin game, James Madison Air Force, another game that I want to watch. And then obviously I'll be in and out and watching games. Yeah, we'll figure it out, KB. We'll have a schedule. Obviously, we want to talk about the playoff games and the Year 6 Bowls in depth more than anything else, and we'll break those down. Those games the big games kind of start Friday the 29th, so we'll have to figure something out. But I do appreciate everybody listening. I know we have about 10, 15 listeners every episode, and I just want to shout out you guys. Obviously, KB and I are doing this because we love to talk about football, and we also appreciate each other, so shout out KB. But would love to get more traction, so if you guys want to share us and like us and talk to us about your, around Christmas dinner, hey, listen to these two idiots talking about football. We appreciate that. We're going to keep on chugging along here with the bowl games, and we're going to talk about the draft after all that stuff. But really appreciate everybody. Really shout out to Jonathan Smith and the coaching for State. I think they're doing a tremendous job so far. Looking forward to them. We're a hockey school right now. I might go watch the Great Lakes Invitational in GR. State plays in that. It's a 14 little tournament, so shout out to them as well. Thanks as always. Merry Christmas. As we say in my house, Merry Christmas, because it's a last name pun. Appreciate everybody. Like I said, appreciate KB around this time. And one more time before Christmas, go green.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much. Like Dave said, appreciate all the dogs that ride with us. I know we're not big, but 15 listeners, 10 listeners, y'all my dogs, right? It's probably the same 10 every single week.
Absolutely.
Probably our buddies. But appreciate you guys so much. If you guys have any questions or anything you want us to answer, please send stuff. Please.
I'm always on Twitter. Always.
Mm-hmm. And then outside of that, I'll say happy holidays because I'm much more inclusive than Dave. He might have to take some.
Oh, shots fired.
He might have to take some classes at his job
Yes,
if
happy
this goes
holidays. Happy
viral.
Festivus as
But
well, KB.
yeah, happy holidays. Thank you guys, whatever you're celebrating, being around friends and family. I love talking with Dave about this, and college football. It's just the best. As much as the sport's changing, as much as it's getting more corporatized and monetized, I think a holiday like Christmas kind of reflects that a little bit, where it's about friends, family being around each other, and now it's kind of turned into this hoopla about who has the brightest Christmas tree and all that stuff, and how many gifts can you send to a cousin. But whatever, I appreciate all of it. Appreciate you guys. One last time before the holidays, and then we'll see you probably right before the new year. So go blue.
Perfect. See you guys. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
There we go, baby.